Alright, so we're back in a World of Warfare and economics, and as you guys know, I've been following this game pretty intensely for a combination of reasons. This is one of the very few geopolitical grand strategy games that has a combination of really cool elements, real-time battles, economic management, and the ability to change laws and participate in elections, and just really unique stuff like that that you actually don't see in 2025. Now recently, the wonderful people over at Okran Studios reached out to talk about their latest update, which introduced a plethora of massive changes that we'll be going over in this video today. Huge shout out to Okran Studios for sponsoring this video. Let's dive into this one. Now, before we go over the changes in the update, let's actually talk about the game itself so you guys have a better understanding of what the game is about if you've never played it. Now, as I mentioned in the intro, this is a geopolitical grand strategy game that combines several elements you expect from this genre. Obviously, it falls into the same vein as games like Heart of Iron, Power and Revelation, and a few others like Civ and stuff with the sword, so very similar feel when it comes to the gameplay. But let's go over the core system so you can have a better idea of how this game works. So this game has four pillars that I like to call. First is economic simulation. You take control of your country's economy, you manage industry, adjust policies, and set tax rates. You'll build and upgrade facilities, engage in global trade, and oversee key sectors like health, security, welfare, and transportation. And then of course you're going to have resource management, which is going to be very key. If you don't maintain a steady supply chain, your country could face shortages, civil unrest, or even economic collapse. So you have complete control over your economic situation. You're going to control world trade and things like that, how your country trade, depending on the country that you want to use. Of course, you may have a country that has a strong trade, you may have one that doesn't. Whatever the case is, whichever you choose, you're going to have to take control of the economics of it. We also have diplomatic simulation in this game. As the world leader, you'll basically shape foreign policies by negotiating treaties, forming alliances, and managing global relations. You'll interact with real-world organizations like NATO, BRIC, and United Nations, while also using diplomacy to secure military support, economic aid, or political influence. And then everything that you do will have some form of consequences depending on what you do. Other nations will react, either support you or turn against you, which may affect your reputation, your alliances, and may even put you into war situations, which we're going to talk about next. And there's war simulations. You guys know me, I'm hyper aggro when it comes to any game I play, and if diplomacy fails, military strategy is going to be something that you have to take into account. You can command land, air, naval, and missile forces, all are which based on real-world military units and data. You can engage in large-scale conflicts, annex territories, conquer nations, and pretty much adapt your tactics based on the terrain, resources, and the enemy strength to kinda shape the globe how you kinda want it to be into your own individual vision. Again, I'm hyper aggro when I play these kind of games. But yeah, that's one of the other key pillars. And one of the final key pillars is just intelligence. Beyond diplomacy and war, you'll also be able to manage powerful intelligence networks. You can conduct espionage, track enemy movements, and gather crucial intel in real time. For example, covert operations will allow you to sabotage enemies' infrastructure, disable military equipment, and be able to destabilize rival nations from within, giving you strategic advantages. Really cool stuff like that. And the game is a full-scale global political simulator, letting you shape pretty much any nation's future based on what you want to do, taking into account all their economic powers, their diplomacy, their military strength, and intelligence operations. It just creates a really cool geopolitical grand strategy game that, again, you don't see in 2025 often, and that's pretty much what the game is about. Those are basically the core systems that define the gameplay. And there has been some pretty cool mechanical changes that happened in this recent update, and it actually addresses some of the issues that I previously had with the game that we're going to be expanding on in just a second. But yeah, let's talk about those changes now because these are actually pretty big. So what are some of the changes that you should expect in this new update? Well, first off, the thing that I think is probably the biggest and most important for me personally is the user interface changes. Now, this game has a ton of complex systems because, again, you're managing a full-fledged economy and you're pretty much engaging in running a nation. Because of that, you should expect a really large user interface that was, at least in the past, a little bit more on the clunkier side. It made it a little bit harder for players to want to navigate it and get used to it, and it is very overwhelming. With the newest update, there is going to be a complete redesign of the UI with more tooltips, simpler navigation, and a streamlined layout. Looking at the screen, it takes up a much smaller portion of the display, and it's a little easier for you to kind of focus on what's going on in the country and the world because, well, UI is one of the most important elements of the game. and whenever you can't really see what's going on, that tends to make it a little bit hard to manage things, especially in this type of game. So yeah, that's one of the biggest updates. I think a lot of players are going to be way more happier to jump into the game, especially with the systems being a little bit more refined and simplified. Probably the biggest in the entire update for me personally. Under performance, there have been a plethora of performance changes that, in my opinion, have been something that has been needed for a long time. Previously, the load times have been relatively long. It took my PC about a minute and a half to get into the game. Keep in mind that this is a really large game. You're going over the entire world essentially because you are running a country, and the load times in the past took up so much time. As of right now, testing this new update, it's taken me roughly about 15 seconds. Again, my PC is not the best PC in the world, but 15-second load times, and probably if you have a better PC, it's probably going to take less than 10 seconds to load the entire map and everything, is a significant improvement. If you played a full-fledged game, you will know that during the year and the month transitions, there is a ton of lag and you would tend to have a little bit on the lower FPS side. They have officially fixed this and made it so that you're delivering pretty actively 150 plus FPS with minimal lag during those transitions. So again, just making the overall gaming experience feel a lot better. Of course, the game is in early access, so you can't expect everything to be perfect, but you know, it's a big change and they've made some vast improvements. On top of this, all those things we talked about, the intelligence, the diplomacy, the resource management, all of those things have been reworked to make the game feel significantly more polished. For the resource management, for example, they have made some changes to where it accumulates over time and it makes them a little bit more easier to trade and manufacture. In the past, it was more of you did or you didn't have it, which isn't necessarily the most clearest and is harder to gauge for players who are just trying to get into the game. Diplomacy has been re-simplified in a way that makes way more sense. If you did interact with the diplomacy system, it was a little bit overly complex to some degree, and trying to form alliances and the such was actually kind of difficult. So they simplified the diplomacy system and introduced diplomatic missions and incidents for more realistic situations that go on in the world. So yeah, leaning more into the geopolitical strategy part of the game. When it comes to like the military and intelligence, in the past you had to manually allocate soldiers, aircrafts, and pretty much anything for networks. They've added features that automatically will allocate the manpower. They made the covert operations a little bit more realistic. And then, of course, much more simpler user interface. We talked about this a couple of times. And overall, it looks like there has been a ton of changes that's come to the game. And once again, this is a pretty massive update that has made the game feel significantly better. I'm jumping in and playing a game right now as Russia and, you know, doing what I do best. And the game just feels so much more polished, so much more smoother, and it feels great. So big changes, definitely an update that the game definitely needed, and I'm excited to see more updates when this game continue to, you know, get more development time. Now with that said, what are my final and closing thoughts on this huge Reborn update? Well, honestly, I will say that this has been the biggest step, in my opinion, in the right direction for the game. The user interface changes have been immaculate. In my opinion, this has been the thing I think the game needed the most of for a while, and changing the UI, making it more simplified while still retaining a lot of the good information is a massive step in the right direction, and it makes the game feel significantly better. And just like the update suggests, the game feels completely reborn, and honestly, I'm having a blast jumping in and playing. If you've looked at the most recent reviews of the game, there has been a ton of positive feedback. Before, it was sitting at mixed reviews, and now in the recent update, we've seen nothing but very positive reviews. And the reason for that is because the team is taking feedback and they're putting it into action. They're polishing the game, and honestly, they're just making the game feel a lot better. I feel like there's no better time than right now to jump in and give this game a try. If you're a player who really enjoys this genre, I think that World Warfare and Economics is one of the few that can do it really well, blend all the elements that you come to love. And with the UI changes and all these changes overall amplifying the gameplay experience, I think this is like no better time to jump in and try it out. Down in the description, if you are looking to, you know, try out the game, there will be a link directly to the game. You can go check out the Steam page, see what the reviews are saying, and all that good stuff, so you can have a better, you know, more informed decision on top of this review. Huge shout out to Okra Studios for sponsoring this video, as well as just continuously doing amazing updates on this and letting me test this ahead of launch. That has been really nice of them, so I really appreciate that. Thank you everybody for watching, and I'll see you in the next one very soon.